Good morning. Stacey Ashley here. Welcome to another LinkedIn Live. And today I'm talking to or about professional courtesy, and in particular, getting respect for your time by giving respect to other people about their time. And I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of conversations I've had, which has highlighted that this is still such a big issue, and it really gets in the way of people performing and being super productive and getting the results they want. So welcome if you are live, and thank you for being here. And if you're watching the recording, I'd love to know your thoughts and comments on this topic as well, because it gets people a little bit, disgruntled actually, when they feel like people are imposing on their time. And I can understand that. So I think it's worth a conversation. So if you're live, I'd love to know where in the world you are right now. And I'm just going to check that, in fact, we are live. Turn that off, and I'm just going to check. And I've actually got comments happening for the first time in my tech. So that on a new tech platform. So that's good, and I'm super happy to see that. So let me see, Jivraj. And I probably didn't say that at all properly, but welcome, and it's great to have you here. So I can see that I'm streaming, and again, what I want to talk about is this whole area of, I guess it comes under the banner of professional courtesy. So here's what kicked this off. I was in a conversation with one of the members of one of my leadership programs earlier in the week on the 1,000 Leaders Initiative, and what she was talking about is, and you know what, I can just see that my stream is a bit shaky. So I'm just going to see if I can change my network to make it a little stronger. Might just have to go with it as it is. I don't want to mess it up. Okay, so what happened was I was having this conversation, and she was talking about these plans that she had for a project, which was, sounded all terrific, and she had a really good idea about what it was that she wanted to do, needed to do, the different milestones along the way, which was great. And then she needed input from other people, which is also great, super important that you need that. And I said, okay, so when do you need to start talking to these people? And she's like, before the end of the week. And so my question was, how much time have you set aside for that? And she said, I've got a lot of time in my diary. And I said, yeah, but what about them? And she hadn't actually considered that she needed to book that time in yet, because she wasn't actually going to have the meeting until Thursday or Friday. And so she was very clear. But from a professional courtesy perspective, she wasn't really offering enough respect to the other people around their time. And she wasn't disrespecting them. I think she just really hadn't considered it. And so I know for me, I try to figure out, what's my week going to be focused on? What am I going to plan to do? When am I going to do that? How much time do I kind of need to allow for, my thinking time, my creating time, spending time with my team, all of those sorts of things, as do all leaders to a more or a lesser degree. And so if somebody comes in and they want to put a big chunk of time into your calendar at short notice, then it disrupts everything. You have to, make decisions and choices about, do I do this or do I do that? And I hear all the time, and I don't know if this happens to you, but I'd be really keen to understand. I hear all the time that people have got 2 and 3 meetings booked in their calendar over the top of each other. So they're already busy, and then someone goes and puts another meeting, on top. Even though they can see that they're busy. And that's just not respecting your time. And so if you want people to respect your time, you kind of have to do the same thing to them. You need to role model it and show what's kind of going on. And so I would love to know, is this a problem that you see? Do people kind of just book time into your calendar without actually recognizing that you might already have something committed, or you might have a plan? Do they talk to you about it before? If they can see you're busy, do they actually give you a call and say, hey, I really need to speak to you. I really need you in this meeting. I noticed you're busy, but could you maybe shift things around so we can fit that in? Anyway, I don't see enough of that. So I guess I just wanted to talk about, how do we overcome this? So there's a couple of things. The first one is, and I'd be interested in any suggestions that you've got as well, but the first thing I notice is that you might know, or they might know what their plan is. They know who they need to talk to, they know when, but they don't actually offer advance notice. And so they don't book, they plan, we're going to have a meeting at the end of next week, but they don't necessarily book the meeting now. They wait, another few days before booking the meeting, at which time you've already done your planning, you already know what you're going to focus on. And so when that meeting lands in your calendar, you now have to juggle everything around. So the earlier the notice that you can give, then the more you're respecting the other person's time and their ability to choose where they want to invest it, and whether that's in your meeting or something else. The same with a piece of work. I've worked with so many project managers who rely on other people to get work done, but they don't give them enough advance notice so that they can prioritize that work in amongst all of the other things. And then the project manager wonders why that work didn't get done. So we need to actually respect people's time. We need to recognize they have a whole portfolio of activity, and you are just one of those activities. So if you want them to invest their very valuable time, you need to give them as much notice as possible. And particularly when we're talking about meetings, you've got to come to this really urgent meeting tomorrow, and it's, an hour and a half or 2 hours long. And in that meeting, you have to perform, make a decision, offer information, whatever it may be. But if you don't have time to prepare for the meeting, then you can't do a really great job of that. So that's another thing in terms of the respect people's time, respect their need to actually do their preparation and that sort of thing to get ready for the meeting so they can actually contribute. So again, if you're live, I'd love to know where you are in the world. I'd love to know if this is something that you notice, that people just really are not respecting each other's time. They're just assuming that you will be available when they need you. And maybe it's something that you're doing as well, where, you know that you need other people to come to a meeting or contribute a piece of work or offer information, that sort of thing. And it happens last minute rather than going, okay, it might even be 3 or 4 weeks out that that. So offer that information so people know it's coming. Another classic is when you need to get something approved, whether it's a business case or a sign-off or something like that, from someone else in the organisation, you need to let them know it's coming, like it's nearly ready and I'm going to need you to go through it and approve it next week. So that person can actually set time aside knowing that that's coming to them and they can give it priority. But if it just turns up on the day and you expect them to turn it around in 24 hours, that's not necessarily a reasonable expectation. You have to respect their time. You have to respect that they have other priorities. And so if you want people to respect your time and not double book you and not give you requests at the last minute to provide information or to participate in something, you have to respect them back. And so you have to role model the way that you want your time to be respected. And the same thing is, I see this around what would be another example? Routine kind of activities. Okay, we prepare a budget every year, and that means that finance send out information to all of the cost center managers who have to, put their estimates and their budget together to send it back to finance to get the overall company budget. The more notice that finance can give the cost center managers to get that work done, the more likely it's going to get done, reasonably and in the timeframes. But if it gets last minuted and it's in very short timeframes, then the quality is not going to be there. The priority is not necessarily going to be given because, that all those cost center managers have already got plans of how they were going to spend their time. So if you know that you've got something coming up and you rely on someone else to provide input or contribute or give you information or, approval or whatever it is, you need to let them know so that they can support that activity for you. And you need to give them the professional courtesy of actually giving them advance notice wherever possible. There's always going to be exceptions, but that's what they should be, exceptions, not the rule. So wherever you've got if you're on the receiving end, for example, of that budget request and or a board paper, or, there's lots of examples where they're routine activities. They do come around again and again, but they always seem to be like a surprise. So if you're on the receiving end of that and you hear or receive a request and it's very last minute and it puts you under pressure to be able to deliver it and do it well, then if you don't want that to happen again, you actually need to go back to the originator of the request and ask them to give you more notice, or to give you the schedule for the next 6 months or 12 months, so that you can proactively plan that into your calendar, knowing that it will be coming, so that you can provide it. But it is about educating others on, respecting your time. You do have other things to do as well, although you want to try to support and prioritize what they're asking of you. So I would love to know, has anybody else kind of found themselves getting these last minute requests, getting, finding that they've then got to juggle or change things about, or people actually booking meetings over the top of existing meetings? It's just, look, it's not going to get the best outcomes. You can't be in two places at once. You can't do two things at once. And so creating the best chance of being able to support all those initiatives and activities comes through giving more notice to people. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. But the second thing around professional courtesy in terms of respecting each other's time is the whole interruptions thing. And when you're actually working, and I can see a couple of people, hey, Monica, good to see you there, and Jean Guy from Montreal. Okay, great to have you here too. So the second thing about respecting people's time is interruptions. Now, if I come up and I interrupt you, and of course it's easier in some ways in a workplace because you can just wander up to someone's desk or office and just start a conversation. When we're a little bit more distributed, as some people are at the moment, while we're still kind of operating under some of the COVID conditions, people still can interrupt. They can interrupt you on the phone, primarily because everything else is more of a scheduled activity. But phone and text and I guess even instant messaging can interrupt you or distract you. So that interruption, when you actually insert yourself into someone else's day without asking if it's okay first, is you saying, what I want to talk to you about is actually more important than what you're working on at the moment. So it's not really offering that respect. And so why do I pick on interruptions? Because on average, and I'm talking about kind of a white collar environment, on average, an interruption, it takes you from the point of interruption 25 minutes to return to the same place in your own work. And so if you interrupt someone else, it's the same for them. Get half a dozen interruptions in a day, and that's a significant amount of your day that's just sort of gone up in smoke. So you need to, I believe, be respectful when you think about interruptions. So is this important enough to actually interrupt someone? And how do I actually go about that process of interrupting them? And I believe that you need to ask permission first. Is this a good time? Can I speak to you about whatever the topic is? And if not now, when? And actually create a way into that conversation that gives them a choice about whether they participate in the interruption or not. So that's the first thing. But the other thing is, if you have lots of things that you need to kind of get feedback on from someone, or that you want to get their advice or guidance on, then have a regular time every day that you have 10 or 15 minutes and go through all of them, or maybe twice a day if you have that many things that you need to get their input on. So rather than having individual separate interruptions, just kind of batch them together and do 4, 5 or 6, together in a 10-minute block, and then you can both get back to work and it's much more efficient. And then the other thing, so that's one thing, is ask permission and batch process into a chunk of time each day. You might have like a 10:30 coffee break and you do all of your interruption stuff together. But the other thing is, think about, does this thing, I need this task that I need to get information or feedback or input or whatever to, is it actually that urgent? Does it need to be done now, or could it be done anytime in the next, say, 24 hours? In which case, don't verbally, kind of interrupt that person. Think about an email. Think about sending them a voice message that they can come to, when it suits them. So look at your different options for how you actually communicate the need for their involvement. Yeah, so that it's not always interrupting their flow of thought right now. And again, if you role model this, then it will come back to you, and the interruptions to you are hopefully going to be, less frequent and more considered in terms of, yes, this is something that is actually valid to interrupt you and your work right now, or, we've set special time aside for it. So they're only really simple things, but they make a really big difference in terms of the way that you and the people you work with actually operate together in terms of your efficiency, the way that you are able to actually make time for each other in a way that supports all of your priorities, rather than trying to make your priority or their priority more important. We want to get everything done that we can, but we need to do it in a way that gives us the best opportunity to do that. So to be as organised as possible, as planful as possible, let people know in advance, and, really just show that professional courtesy, that respect. So I would love to know, for you, is this something that you've noticed where people, do book meetings over the top of each other? They give you really short notice, they interrupt you, or maybe it's something you've noticed that you do, and you need to look at what are the options and opportunities for you to actually improve the way that you are offering respect to other people's time and priorities, so that you can work more effectively together. Okay, so I think I've talked enough about that. For those of you that are interested, I have my next Leading Possibility interview happening with the confidence coach, Lisa Phillips, on Thursday night. That's Australian time, at 8 p.m. So I'd love to have you come along and ask a few questions of Lisa around building confidence and well-being and leading possibility. And I think that's me done for today. So have a great day, and I will talk to you again soon.